Now, I get the opportunity to bring up our first keynote speaker this morning. I'm very excited to introduce you to JaQuon. Come on up, JaQuon Stembridge. He's our Georgia GOP Assistant Secretary, the youngest person to ever serve on our GOP state board. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
I thought it was. And JaQuon, we're so glad to have you here and can't wait to hear what you have to say. Take the floor.
Thank you. All right, thank you so much. It's good to be here in Fayette County. This is actually my first time ever in Fayette County, so it's always good to be here. For those of you who don't know me, my name is JaQuon Stembridge. I am 19 years old. I am from Greene County, Georgia. I'm from Greene County, Georgia, and every time I tell people I'm from Greene County, they always ask me, where is Greene County? I say, well, do you know where Lake Oconee is? And sometimes people say, yeah, we know where that's at. But if you don't know where Lake Oconee is, it's 30 minutes south of Athens. So I'm Northeast Georgia. That's where I was born and raised, and that's where I'm from. So for those of you who've never heard my story, I tell people the same thing all the time, that my story of how I got involved in politics is really simple. I got involved in politics in 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic when the world was shut down and it seemed like the government wanted to take full control of our lives. I grew up an only child raised by a single mom, and I grew up kind of just always hearing about the Republican Party in a negative light. But when COVID happened, it took away my social time. Since I was an only child and they shut down the schools, I had nothing better to do anymore in 2020 than to be locked in my house, locked in my room, to learn more about myself, but to also learn more about conservatism and to learn more about myself, about this party that I've heard so much about, to be able to learn about the party, to see what is this Republican Party really about. So I started doing my own research in 2020. I started listening to President Trump's speeches, started looking at Ronald Reagan, and I started listening for myself about conservatism, and I realized two things during that time. Number one, I realized that I did not like having the government in full control of my life, but I also realized during that time that everything that I learned about the Republican Party, it couldn't be further from the truth. It was not the party of rich white men who only cared about themselves, but it was truly a party of hardworking men and women like the people in this room who just cared about the values that people like me cared about. Wanting more law enforcement officers in your community, making sure that you can be able to actually worship when you want to worship, making sure your children can go to a good school. These were all common sense ideas. There was nothing racist about it. It was common sense. Everyone wants to know that when you send your children off to college, they will come back home looking the same way they did when you first sent them away. That was all common sense. So I said, you know what, I'm going to get involved. And so I got involved in 2020. I started volunteering with the Trump campaign. I was like so young. I was like 12 or 13 years old. So they didn't want me knocking on doors for President Trump by myself. So I made some phone calls in that time. But also during that time, there was a runoff election, as you all may remember, with Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue. And so I did the same things for our runoff in 2020. I made some phone calls for them. And then in 2022, in the early part of 2022, I became a volunteer for the Georgia Victory Team, and my job was to help get out the vote of the Republican primary. Because in 2021, the state legislature passed an election integrity bill, and when the state legislature passed that election integrity bill, Stacey Abrams and the Democrats were going all across the country, going on CNN and everywhere else, talking about how our election laws were racist, they were voter suppression, and they were stopping minorities from being able to vote. So my job was to be able to get out the vote so we could show the world that Stacey Abrams was lying about Georgia election laws. And so we did just that, actually. We had the highest Republican turnout in a primary in the state of Georgia's history in 2022. So we showed the world that Georgia election laws actually made it easier to vote and harder to cheat. That was really what it did. So we did that in 2022. And because of my work as a volunteer at Georgia Victory Team during that time, I was actually asked to become a field organizer for the Georgia Victory Team, and I was in charge of a group of people who knocked on doors, made phone calls, wrote postcards, and did everything we could to help get out the Republican vote in 2022. And then in 2023, during my winter break, I had some time to kind of sit at home and to do some more research. And I started looking over the election of 2022, and I realized that we had a huge problem. And the problem that the Republican Party had at that moment was we were losing the next generation of voters. We were not engaging with the next generation of voters. And so in 2023, I decided that I wanted to stay involved, not just during election years, but then off-year elections. And so I started up the Georgia's 10th Congressional District Teen Republicans. And during that time, I went on high school campuses in my district, and I spoke to teenagers, and we recruited teenagers, and we got them involved in the 10th district. I made connections with the county GOP chairman and all those great things in the 10th district. And so I did that for about a year or two. And then this year in March, I decided once again that I was sick and tired of just sitting out on the sidelines. I wanted to get more involved. And so in March, I decided to take a leap out on faith. And I ran for Assistant Secretary of the Georgia Republican Party because I was sick and tired of going through a middleman in order to give young people a seat at the table. We saw for so many years that Democrats have been going on these high school campuses. They've been going to the college campuses. They have been indoctrinating my generation with their woke ideology. And what have we done about it? We've done absolutely nothing. We've sat in rooms like these. We've complained about it, but we have not actually taken the step forward to do something about it. So in March, I went all across this state speaking to rooms like these and rooms bigger than these, speaking to people about why it was so important for our party to start engaging with the next generation of voters. And so I was honored in June of this year when I showed up to Dalton and I gave a speech there. And I was able to win. But not only did I win, I won by 77% of the vote. Now, I'm going to tell you why that is so significant for this party. People say, well, why is it so significant that you became the Assistant Secretary of the Georgia Republican Party? Well, for years we've heard from the media, we've heard from so many people that this is the party of rich white men who cares nothing about black people or anyone else. But the party of rich white men overwhelmingly elected the young 18-year-old black guy named JaQuon to be their Assistant Secretary. That shows the progress that we have in this party and the change that we have. No longer can the Georgia Democrats say that the Georgia Republican Party doesn't look like Georgia. We do look like Georgia. So that's why it's so important that I was able to get this seat. But it's also important now that we actually start doing the things that I campaigned on, which was going to college campuses and going to high school campuses. So what have I been doing for the past few months? Well, once again, I've been doing some more research on new ideas of how to actually get young people involved. We saw in the last election in 2024 that President Trump was able to get young people to actually listen to his message, the conservative message. He showed us what to do to help get young people. But also during the last election, we realize now that in the state of Georgia specifically, the number one growing demographic who has been voting is Gen Z. We are the number one growing demographic when it comes to voting. Number two, what I've seen now in Georgia, is that we have 35% of the electorate in Georgia who's voting are black people. And the demographics in Georgia are changing every single day. So now, not only am I trying to work to help grow the message with young people, we also have to start going to those black communities. So after June, I took about a day off from the campaigning or whatever you want to call it. And so I took about a day off, and a week later, I was back doing things like this, speaking to rooms like these. But in the short time that I've been Assistant Secretary, I've traveled across the state again. I went across and I've spoken to these county GOPs and connected with the grassroots. But I've also started up a youth fund, a youth initiative fund. And this fund is going to allow us to raise money so that we can actually afford to do the things that I said I wanted to do. When I campaigned for Assistant Secretary, I said that I wanted to bring the message to young people. I said there was no one better to bring the message than someone who's actually young. And so I'm doing just that. We're raising the money so we can actually bring the message and meet young people where they are. We're raising money to actually do tailgates. So for the next few months, actually, after I leave here, I'm going to the UGA game to talk to young people, the frats, the sororities, people who conservatives have traditionally forgotten about. We just have not spoken to them. But the frats on campuses are the most conservative groups on the campus. So after I leave here, I'm going to UGA. We're going to go there with the frats. But also, starting next month, we're going to be doing tailgates on college campuses. We're going to Valdosta State. We're going to the UGA versus Georgia Tech game at Mercedes-Benz. And we're going to actually have conversations with young people of what young people actually care about. Actually getting young people registered to vote. Letting them know that, okay, listen, the party that you've known as the old people's party, this is not that party anymore. This is a party who actually cares about young people and the things that you care about. So when I go on these college campuses, I'm not going on there just talking about, Republican, but I'm actually talking about things like how can the young person graduate college, debt-free, and still afford to be able to buy a home. Because that's what young people at colleges care about. And so I'm having those conversations to let them know that, all right, that's what you care about? Well, let me show you that conservative values actually can get you there. We actually want to make sure that you can have a leg up and not just have you dependent on the government for the rest of your life. So that's what we're doing. We're going to be going to these college campuses, but we're also going to high school campuses. We're going to high school campuses on Friday nights, talking to young people once again, getting them registered to vote. And there's something a little different that we're doing. And if you want to do some Q&A after this, I'll take your questions and do that as well. But we also, when we're going to these college campuses, for years we've seen that Democrats have actually gotten their young people not to only vote, but they've gotten young people who were like in different states to change their voter registration to Georgia. It was a big deal in 2021. And so one of the things that we're doing now is we're going to young people, for example, at UGA, and the person might be conservative, but their voter registration might still be in California. That's a liberal state. And we're saying, hey, you know what? You live in Georgia now, and that's actually legal. So how about you change your voter registration to Georgia? And we actually get these young people to vote here because the Democrats been doing it. And so we have to stop playing nice and start beating the Democrats at their own game. So that's what I've been doing for the past few months. It's been a lot. It's been a lot of traveling, a lot going on there. And I didn't say this in my speech earlier, but I'm also a sophomore in college, so I'm also doing my college things as well. But it has truly been a great time just going around speaking to these rooms and going on the college campuses and being able to actually bring in the new people. I mean, college students are fun. They're really fun, and I just love doing it because what I get to see is there's young people who, when I talk to them, they're like, well, you know, when I thought of the Republican Party, I thought the Republican Party was like a bunch of uptight people who just didn't care about us. And I'm like, well, not everybody. We want to be able to bring you in, you know. We want to be able to bring you in and open up the door to the next generation. Now, one of the last things I'm going to leave you with, and then I'll take some questions if you all want to ask some. We've heard, there's a lot of anger in America right now. And there's a lot of anger in the Republican Party. We've seen a lot of anger in our party for the past few months, specifically in Georgia. And let me tell you something. There is just nothing for us Republicans to be angry about. We are winning, and that is amazing. But not only are we winning, we are finally winning even the culture wars. We're seeing young people running back to Christ who actually wants to be in the church. That is a win. We finally have a president in the White House who has done the things that he said he was going to do, closing the southern border. But let me just tell you this. In my speech at the convention, I said that we need to stop being the grand old party of the past and become the party of the future. And I still believe that. We do need to become the party of the future, but we are becoming that party of the future. Now, when we think of GOP, instead of us saying grand old party, I think the O in GOP should stand for opportunity. We are the party of opportunity who wants to give the next generation the opportunity to buy your first home so you can start a family and live the American dream that we've all heard about for so many years. That's what's important. That's what our party should be known for, the party of opportunity. And if we keep going with that, we will win in 2026. We will win this year with our public service commissioner's race. And the Democrats are going to have a hard time taking Georgia from us. So thank you all so much. And I'll take your questions if you have any. Yes, sir.
I don't have a question. I just want to thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Oh,
JaQuon.
Can we put some money in your pocket on your way out?
Yes, you can. But as soon as I get done with this, I'm going to be walking. So if you could catch me before I get out of here, because I got to get to you, Jen.
All right, Barbara, you had a question?
I don't have a question either. I just want to say, I'm voting for you for next session.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Mary, you have a question?
Yeah, just something for the future. One of the things that I've been thinking about as we try to increase our finances here is that we would like to have candidates run in Fayetteville, but we are asking them to run a race where they are very likely to not prevail initially. And if we had money that we could say, we'll support your campaign, this is me thinking, if you'll run, then I would love to hear what advice you would give us about running a candidate in a very Democrat city.
Yeah, well, you can't change the city until you run someone. Let me give you an example, actually. In Senate District 21, right now, where Brandon Beach was senator at, the Democrats didn't even run anyone there for years, but they just ran a Democrat there, and that Democrat got 40% of the vote. They actually got the most votes out of everybody. It's going to a runoff with the Republican and Democrat. Well, we would never have the numbers to see, what we're making our mistakes on if someone doesn't, run. But a lot of people don't want to run because they don't want to lose. So you have to kind of just be honest with them and say, look, this is a race that you're probably not going to win, but we need you. This is our guinea pig, so we can kind of see where our mistakes at and what can we do better in the future to get our Republican vote here. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say one thing. I love what you said.
Yeah.
You're really good, and I'm very glad you're there. But there's just one thing.
Okay.
You said that it shows progress with the Republican Party, but I think what it shows is how we've been lied on. Because the Republican Party started initially was to include black people to give them a chance to vote. That was the whole thing. If you look back at the history, it's true. So the Democrats didn't even vote for civil rights. It was all Republicans. So they're coming along and trying to defend themselves by lying about us. But what you're doing is exposing the truth. So I'm great.
Thank you. So I'm going to add on to that. Yes, you're right. The Republican Party actually was founded to end slavery, so you're completely right about that. And when I say progress, I just mean the fact that we're actually electing people who look like this now. So that's one of the things I meant by that. But yes, you're completely right. Yes, sir. Oh, ma'am, sorry.
No problem. I'm just wondering, do you have any problems getting into the high schools? How do you get in to be able to speak to the students?
Yeah, actually, so I go about it in different ways. It depends on the county that I'm going into. I try to go to red counties first, so that already has a Republican school board, and I try to go speak in those areas and ask them, hey, can I come and speak at your high school to a group of people? And most people, even if they're Republican, they'll tell you no. So usually another thing that I have to try to do is I'll just say, well, can I come in during the time that the students are going to lunch and set up a table and do a voter registration table? And I put a QR code out there so they can register themselves to vote. I put candy on the table, and young people will run to that. And so when they come to it, I'll have a conversation with them and say, hey, okay, you came to register to vote? Cool. Well, once you register to vote, I'll give you a piece of candy, whatever the case is. And then after that, I'll actually just start having a real conversation, and it builds a connection. So that's the most I usually can get, like at an actual high school, besides the Friday night stuff. So that's kind of how I get into the high schools. But most times, these people don't want you to come in being political. But the Democrats have been doing these voter registration things for years. So that's why I go in and I try to do something like that. Yes?
JaQuon, actually, I'm working on going to the high schools to register, so I'll reach out to you if you're free to join me.
Yeah, I would love to. Yeah.
We do that for Fayette County.
Yep, sounds good to me. I would love to do that. Any more questions?
Well, thank you, JaQuon,
Thank you.
so much.